Good morning, Shelley. Thank you so much for being here today. We're super excited to get to interview you. I would love if you could introduce yourself.
Hey, Courtney. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be on your show. I am a person who wears many hats and has had many hats worn throughout my life. I am a wife, a mother, a dog lover. I have been a paraprofessional, a special education teacher. I'm now an IEP consultant and master IEP coach. I am an author, which is why I'm here. I am extremely passionate about changing the perspectives of those who only look at someone's disability instead of their abilities. And when we start talking about my book, it'll make more sense what I'm talking about. But I went from wanting to be a person who taught only in the general education classroom and even only in the primary grades to loving special education, specifically kids with behaviors that were unwanted, and kindergarten through eighth grade. And then those were the grades that I taught. But my book covers people from all ages of life, kindergarten all the way up to mid 30s. And as my business as an IEP consultant, I help families pre-K through high school understand kind of that whole special education process. And I work with parents, and and I work with teachers and school districts as well to help them have a better understanding and have a more collaborative approach to working with parents, which again stems from the book. And when we get into the book, I'll talk more about that.
Love that. That's so amazing. I would love if you could tell us more about what the book is about.
Yeah, absolutely. The title of the book is Those Who Can't Teach. And the word can't is in quotation marks, and it has an ellipsis behind it because these people in my book have been told, whether it's the family member, the parent, or the actual individual with the disability, that they can't read or write or have a happy life or go on vacations or get a driver's license or lots of focus on, like I said, the disability side of things rather than all the positives and the wonderful things that come with being a person or being a family with a person who has someone that is extremely unique. All of us are unique, but people who have a disability tend to have some uniqueness that isn't honored by society very well. And so the book is 10 chapters, all true stories. And 9 of the chapters are from families that I interviewed that we talked about everything in their life, from what it was like in their pregnancy all the way to, what it was like present day whenever I interviewed them. It's been a few years since the interviews have happened, so it's not truly present day anymore, but the book itself was so eye-opening to me when I was doing the interviews. As I said, I'm a special education teacher, and many of the families, well, all of the families in the book are people that I knew, but several of the families were families that I taught. And I was able to teach many of my students for several years. And so I felt, kind of walking alongside these families, these students every day for 180 days for multiple school years, that I had a pretty good understanding of what it would be like to walk in their shoes every day. And yet, when I started interviewing these families, I realized that I say a thimbleful of knowledge. Some people say the tip of an iceberg, but I think that's too big because an iceberg is such a massive idea that there was just so little that I really had an understanding of what it was like walking in their shoes every day. And so my own perspective changed even more during my interviews. And the families were so genuine and raw and honest with all of their experiences, and the amount of trust that they bestowed upon me to tell their story is overwhelming. Now, every family in the book had final editing rights, so it is truly their stories. I was just the blessed one to be able to put it on paper. Now, there is a 10th chapter. As I said, there's 9 families that I interviewed. The 10th chapter is my chapter of going from, as I said, wanting to only ever teach primary general education students to where I am today.
I love that. That's so amazing. What inspired you to write your book?
Honestly, I felt led by the Lord to write the book. I taught for over a couple of decades, and I thought I was going to continue teaching. And I moved from one position to another position, just to kind of stir myself up. I kind of felt like I was in a little bit of a rut, and so I went to this new position. And after the first year there, they said, "We're not going to have this program anymore, and so therefore we're not going to have your position anymore." And so I thought, okay, well, now what do I do? Because teaching has always been what I wanted to do. And so I was praying about, my next steps. And I really felt like the Lord led me to read this book or write this book. And I was like, I'm not an author. I'm not a writer. I'm a teacher. And I just really felt like it was impressed upon me that their stories are amazing and their stories need to be shared with the world. And so that's where it started. And that's also where the title came from. As I said, those who can't teach. As a teacher, I have heard that saying hundreds of times, those who can do, those who can't teach. And that always made me and all my fellow teachers that I've ever asked the question, why don't we like this saying? Well, it's because it always makes us feel less than every other profession out there. And yet teachers are teaching every profession out there. You typically don't go to most professions unless you've had teachers along the way teaching you something. And the idea for the title is that's how the people in the book feel. They feel like others look at them as somehow less because they don't look the same or behave the same or read at the same rate, or their family unit doesn't look the same. And so the idea of it is to kind of turn that whole saying on its head, like those who can't, teach, because at the end of each of the chapters, other than my own, I say what I have learned from each of the families through the interviews, through knowing them, from being a teacher of one of their loved ones. And it's truly incredible. I feel as though I have learned as much from those that I taught as what I taught them. And I just feel that it's so important for everybody to see that and have that experience, because the only reason I went from wanting to teach gen ed to wanting to teach special education is being exposed to people who had different needs than what I was expecting. And it was through those exposures that my perspective changed. And so I felt as though this book, and then I have a subsequent podcast as well called #NoLimits, where I tell more of these stories, because there are literally millions of those kinds of stories out there, Courtney, and I can't write them all in a book. I could, but it would take a whole lot more time than it does to now, have the one book out and then continue with the podcast and telling all the different stories.
I love that. That's so amazing. So typically, many of our listeners will be surprised that I chime in. I usually stick straight to the script, but this is something that touches my heart because all of those individuals have something that we can learn from them. We went through the IEP process originally when my daughter was in pre-K, and my heart goes out to those families because ours wasn't as intensive. So I can only imagine what they're going through. And the one thing that we learned from it is that you have to advocate for yourself and your child. So it's
Yeah.
amazing what you're doing and putting out there so that people can hear other people's stories and get inspired from it and learn those tips and different things. So that's super amazing.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, it's definitely a daunting process for sure.
When you were writing your book, who were you thinking of when it comes to who the book is truly for?
That's a great question. At the beginning of writing it, felt like it was just going to be for anyone and everyone to read, because I had some experiences. Some of the people in the book are family members or friends and their children. And I thought, anybody can read this, whether it's the neighbor, whether it's someone that is, the coworker, whether it's someone who is, a related family member, maybe not in the immediate family. And then about halfway through writing, I thought, there's a population of people who see these kids almost as much as the parents, and they need to read this book and they need to see this book. And so I sort of changed, not that the average person wasn't still very important and of thinking who my audience was going to be, but I started thinking just more of the like marketing part of it. I need to market this more to teachers. And not again that I have shifted that, but as far as I get tons and tons of feedback from teachers. I don't get as much feedback from the person outside of education as to whether or not, the book has changed their life. But I've done multiple book studies with teachers. I've done conferences. I've done where I've been the vendor, and I've done book signings. And many teachers have come up to me at these places and said, I have to have your book because I have heard so much about it from this teacher or that teacher, or districts buying, a dozen books a dozen copies of the book in order to let every teacher in their district have a copy because they know the impact that it has been having with teachers. So again, I'm not saying that it's not for the general public. It definitely is. I've had family members, aunts and uncles read, and they have been so touched by what their family member has gone through, and it has changed their approach. And honestly, Courtney, it has mended some families because they had sort of separated themselves from the family who had the child with the disability. And after reading the book, they have said, I need to walk along with you better. I need to, I have a better understanding of what you're going through now. I still don't understand it completely, but I understand it better. And sometimes it takes that for a voice that you're not familiar with to speak to you, to reach your heart, to change your perspective and your attitude about things. I've had families that have said other family members have apologized to them for how poorly they treated them or how little they thought about the family member with the disability and their abilities. And so, absolutely, it really is for everyone. But when you're thinking about those people who are around kids, especially almost as much as the parents, it's that group of teachers. And so, if we can get our teachers to change, and therefore we're changing the perspective of entire school districts on how to approach and interact and have expectations for our kids with disabilities and different learning ways, then we're going to reach more people that way. And that's truly my goal, is to change the perspectives.
Love that. That's so amazing. How long have you been writing and what made you really start?
Honestly, this is my first, and at this point only, book. I do think I have some other ones milling around in my head, but I don't know if they will ever make it to paper. And from start to finish, from the original thought to the actual, oh my gosh, it's live on Amazon, was about 3 years. And I doubt that that is typical for most authors. The reason mine took so long is because I was a brand new writer and I didn't know kind of the steps and the process, and plus all the interviewing. I wanted to make sure that, as I said, the families had final editing rights, and I wanted to make sure that I was getting their story in their words, written the way that they wanted it. And when you're involving 9 different groups of people, sometimes, that just takes a while. It wasn't that I was working every day on the book, because sometimes the families had their chapter for a few weeks or a month. and and then the editing, because the book itself is almost 300 pages. And so when I went to my editor, she didn't anticipate it would take quite as long as it did. But basically what we've decided is it's kind of 3 books in one, because each chapter is its own story. And so if you broke that down, you could, make it into 3 different, and that's what we did. We made it into 3 different sections, and so that it's a little bit easier for people to feel like they're getting somewhere in the book. One of the great things about the book is you truly can read one chapter and then put it down, and 6 months later come back and read another chapter, and you don't have to read it chapter 1 all the way through chapter 10. You can read chapter 10 and then come back and read chapter 2, and then, whatever order you prefer to read it, because it isn't contingent on the chapter before it.
Love that. That's so amazing. What was your schedule like when you were writing the book?
I, for my own chapter, I very quickly, within 2 or 3 days, had it written. And that was spending maybe a couple of hours each day, just putting my thoughts down. And as a former, as a former teacher, I tended to edit kind of as I was going along. So I wouldn't just put everything down at once and then go back. I would sort of, oh no, wait, I don't like the way I worded that sentence. And so then I would fix that one sentence, or, oh, I caught the grammar mistakes, or, so I kind of edited as I went along. Then I thought, okay, well, this isn't going to take me long, because it only took me 2 or 3 days to do my own story. So mistakenly, I thought it was only going to take that long to do each other family story as well. And there were days, because of the length of time that overall it ended up taking, that I had to almost force myself and set out a schedule for myself of, okay, you have to get so many words written today, or you have to spend so many hours. And I tried different things to motivate me, because sometimes the number of words would do it. And other times it was, no, I'm sitting here for 4 hours to get 300 words down, and I do have a business, and I have to run my business, and I had to do other things. And so, and there just wasn't the desire sometimes, by setting a set schedule of when I was going to do things or how I was going to do things. And so I kind of ebbed and flowed as far as the process went.
Love that. What did you need in your writing space to help you stay focused?
I needed my notes. I needed it to be quiet. I as the longer it took, the easier I was distracted by pretty much anything, because I was getting to that point of, I just want to get it done. It's been so long. But I also am the kind of person that if my name is attached to it, it has to live up to a certain standard. And that is a pretty high standard of, I have to give 100% to everything I'm doing. And I wanted to make sure that I gave 100% to each story, because each story was just as important as every other story in the book. And I didn't want for someone to think, oh, she just, slopped this down. So sometimes I had the pictures of the people to remind me to stay focused. Sometimes I would have some like motivational music playing, just to kind of stir me a little bit. I think that was pretty much it.
Love that. What is your favorite writing snack or drink?
Oh gosh. That's a great question. I would say, well, my favorite drink is always Pepsi. So I'm sure that during the writing process, that was with me a lot. Um, Favorite snack? Goodness, I'm not really a big snacker. So, um, honestly, I don't know. I really couldn't answer that. I really don't know.
Love it. What type of books do you personally enjoy reading?
I really like stories, biographies, autobiographies. Um, in my younger days, I was more of a romance kind of person, but as I'm older, it's gone more to the biographies, the autobiographies. I also like to read books that teach me things. I guess that's from the teacher side of me. I'm always still wanting to learn, and always wanting to be better equipped to help myself and anyone that I interact with, and specifically my clients. Um, the one book that I find myself reading over and over again is the Bible. It's always new to me, even if I've read the same passage 100 times. That 101st time is often different than all the other times, and um, that's the one that I go to every day.
Are there any books or authors that inspired you to become a writer?
Oh, I don't know that. As I said, I felt like I was inspired by God to write the book, but I do very much appreciate people like Dr. Temple Grandin, Richard Lavoie. I have several of their books that I have read over the years. Um, yeah, not really.
Amazing. What type of books did you grow up reading? Did you have an all-time favorite?
Um, I read The Babysitter's Club a lot, so I'm going to date myself here. I read now the Hardy Boys and the Nancy Drew had been out for a while, but those were books that I did enjoy. Um, I read Sweet Valley High was another series of books that I read. So again, dating myself. Did I have an all-time favorite growing up? I don't think so. Um, I'm kind of glad that this is audio because you're watching me kind of look around, because I'm trying to like screen my memory really quick and go, okay, what did I read all the time? And I'm glad your listeners can't see me doing that. Oh gosh. I know I should answer with like, a classic, but I really can't think of anything that was a real favorite growing up. I'm the kind of person that I typically read a book once and then I put it down. My husband, on the other hand, and our daughters, they will both read the same book multiple times. But me, I'm a once and done kind of a person. Other than, like I said, the Bible is the book that I read all the time.
Love it. On the other side of that, now as an adult, what are your favorite series or authors that if they come out with something, you're going to automatically grab it?
Probably Dr. Temple Grandin again and Rick Lavoie, just because they have been so inspirational to me in my career as an educator. Um, I do, I like, oh gosh, the name just escaped me. It's by Kurt Warner. It's the book about his life. I like those inspirational kind of stories, but I don't know that there's any other than the two that I mentioned. I don't think there are really any other people that I specifically go to, but I do like those inspirational ones.
Love that. What would you tell someone just starting out with reading again?
Just starting out reading again, um, it has to be something that interests you. Um, don't force yourself to do it. I, as a teacher, that sounds really bad, probably, but um, as a reader, you want to find the things that interest you. That you want to, if you like mechanics, then read books or magazines or things that talk about mechanical things. If you like romance or you want escape books, look up Lori Bell. She's a good author, and she's the kind of author that she puts a lot of her own life into her stories, even though they're fictional stories. She still puts a lot of her life experiences into her stories. Um, just yeah, get a comfortable spot. Get your, cup of coffee, your tea, your soda. If you're like me, I'm not a hot drink person, but whatever your comfortable beverage is, and just immerse yourself in whatever it is that you're reading.
Love that. On the other side of that, what would you tell someone just starting to write their own book?
Just start. is the biggest thing, I think. Put something down, whether you put it down written or you put it down on a recorder of some kind. Um, just get the ideas going. And if you, I'm a self-published author, but if you want to go the publisher route, know what they're looking for. Don't just randomly submit. You're in your head like, okay, I'm gonna promote this only to these types of publishers. Think about what those publishers are looking for, and hone in on what you think your topic is going to be about and the kind of publisher that publishes those kinds of books. If you're self-publishing and you're thinking about going that route, I recommend finding someone or a group of people that can walk alongside you through that. I kind of jumped in with both feet and thought, oh, okay, well, you write the book first, and then you find an editor, and then you find a publisher. And along the way, I wrote the book first, and then found this group that was going to help me self-publish. And they said, well, we could have helped you, as you were writing the book with, writing styles or being ghost writers. If you have a story that you want to tell and you don't feel like you're the best one to put it on paper, then get a ghostwriter. Find those people. And then, when I found this group of people again, they helped me go through the whole getting it out on Amazon and getting it with all of the different people, all of the organizations. I mean, I never would have probably, I probably could have eventually figured all of those things out, but it was so much easier to have them who already had the knowledge walking alongside me and helping me through every step. Anybody, I'm trying to think if there's any other advice I have for beginning writers. I think just have your idea and just start. That's the biggest advice I have.
Love that. What's one thing that people are generally surprised to find out about you?
It's another excellent question. I like questions that make me think. So you've done that very well. What are people genuinely surprised to know about me? That I am adventurous. I have taken a flying lesson. I really want to go skydiving. I had dates scheduled, and unfortunately those didn't happen. I like to go four-wheeling. I like to do climbing, not like the real steep stuff, not the extreme climbing, but I like to be out in nature and doing those kinds of things. And I am willing to take risks as long as it's not an extreme risk of life. I mean, I know that four-wheeling or jumping out of an airplane could be, but there are safety features in place. So, I will take those kinds of risks, and I like to be adventurous.
Love that. Is there anything you would like to say or add?
Just believe in yourself. Even when others don't believe in your abilities, you are more capable than you think. And don't let other people's opinions of you deter what you believe you can accomplish.
Love that. That's so amazing. Where's the best place for readers to find your book? I know some readers love signed copies. Is that an option and the best place for them to connect with you?
Yeah, so my book is available anywhere that books are sold, at least to my knowledge. They're supposed to be, based on what I just said about the group that helped me put it all out there. They can also get autographed copies through my website, which is shelleykenow.com. And Shelley is SHELLEYKENOW.com. And they can connect with me on Facebook, on Instagram, LinkedIn. I have a website, as I just mentioned. Reach out to me through email. I think that's it.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here today. We're so grateful we got to interview you. We'll be sure to drop those links in the show notes. That way everyone can find you.
Great. Thank you so much, Courtney. I very much enjoyed this.